Thank you. Councilmember Duncan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I want to echo the comments from Board Member Gasterland and Second Vice Chair Huebner. They're dead on correct. You know, the process, both from some of the actions from prior SANDAG boards, but also from HCD in regard to Coronado was an unmitigated disaster. How do we know that the process was a failure and made no sense? We know that because HCD came to Coronado, looked at Coronado and said, oh, it's impossible for Coronado to comply with their allocation. You need a legislative change. How can the process be so flawed and so not dealing in reality that it's impossible for a city to comply? How can there be no flexibility to where a city cannot comply? There's so many rules in it that literally make no sense, as well as how the allocation was calculated. The allocation took into account all the jobs on the military bases in Coronado. That's why, by the way, that land makes up more of Coronado than the rest of the city. And yet we didn't get credit for housing on the military base where they actually live and work. It takes into account sailors that are living on carriers, but yet Coronado is supposed to build housing for them. Where? On our port land? Oh yeah, we're not allowed under law to build on port land. Well, maybe we could build a few 10-story buildings in the middle of Coronado. Oh, that's not allowed. We have federal regulations and naval flight pattern and flight crash zones where we're not allowed to build. You know, what are we supposed to do? What HCD and what SANDAG's prior boards did is force Coronado to spend hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have been used on actually helping people and use it on consultants and attorneys to come up on our own with a bizarre solution, which had us have the Attorney General sue our city and file a settlement, which guess what? Allowed us to get some credit for some of the new housing on military bases. The fact that there's no procedure, there's nobody to talk to, there's no help available for cities, the process is completely flawed and is doing a disservice to the public, disservice to low-income families who would actually like to maybe have a process where something can get built. You know, there's rules that we had to deal with, for instance, in Coronado, that says you must zone lots that are a half acre or bigger owned by one party in order to get a certified housing element. How many of those lots do you think exist in Coronado? Basically none. That's why in our settlement with the Attorney General, one of the lots that had to be included was our police station. We're almost out. We don't have any other lots. So what do we do with the next cycle? So when you speak to us today, what we're hoping to get is actually some details. What actually might get better? When is it going to get better? How do we participate and make it better? I mean, great, there's been some stakeholder surveys. That gives us zero comfort. We need help from your department. We need help. We need information. We need a partner. We need to make this process actually work for our population, not just politicians somewhere making up rules that make no sense and can't be complied with. And despite our settlement with the Attorney General, we're in a whole new phase with HCD. Beyond RENA. Is anybody else in beyond RENA? Other requirements that you have to comply with or you can't move forward? It's like, when does it end? When does it make sense? When do we have something that we can actually do without just pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into regulatory, you know, fees and litigation fees and having nothing to show for it? You know, Coronado couldn't do something like say, oh, hey, we have Orange Avenue, which by the way has hundreds of thousands of vehicles travel it daily for the whole, you know, region. We can't say, oh, we'll add another story on top of our buildings and have mixed use and provide some good housing there because none of those lots comply. I mean, how does that make any sense? How are we doing anything to help the population and get maybe teachers or police officers places to live? We're doing nothing. This process has been an unmitigated disaster.
Mayor Kranz.